Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my Gen Con 2025 preview. So this is going to be my first time going to Gen Con both as a general attendee as well as to cover it for the channel. So I'm really excited. There are tons and tons of games I am looking forward to checking out. And the purpose of this video is a bit of a roundup of all the games that have caught my eye. So I went to the Board Game Geek Gen Con preview. I scrolled through all 600 plus games that are on there and opened an ungodly amount of tabs of anything that caught my eye. And then I trimmed them down, and those are the games we're going to talk about today. There's no real rhyme or reason. These are just games that caught my eye for one reason or another. Some of them I'm going to know more about. Some of them are just going to be purely like vibes based, of like a game that I just looks interesting and I want to check out. And so this is kind of just going to be a hodgepodge way to organize my thoughts and hopefully have a guide for myself of games that I need to remember to look at while I am there. So the kind of general structure of this is going to be kind of broken into kind of general mechanics or player counts. So I'm going to go over solo games and then two-player games and then kind of party, very light games and then medium games, and then we'll end it with like some of the heavier, meatier games. So that's going to be the general structure. I'll have bookmarks if you just want to hear about one kind of genre of game. You can check it out over there. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started because I have too many games here to talk about right now. So I'm going to go ahead and start things off with solo/cooperative games. So typically anything cooperative can usually be played solo, so I kind of smashed them all into one category here. But let's go ahead and start with solo games, and the first one that really caught my eye is Ace of Spades. And so this is a really cool setting where it's like kind of Western fantasy, very like kind of necromancer, dark fantasy sort of thing. And the main mechanic behind it is using poker hands to defeat enemies. So I was also bitten by the Balatro bug last year, which I feel like this is, maybe inspired by, where you're going to be working through these different sets of enemies and using different poker hands to defeat them. And so I love the look of it. I like kind of the fantasy Western theme really does it for me. And I'm really excited to check this one out. And I feel like a lot of that Balatro knowledge is going to be transferable into playing Ace of Spades. So really cool looking solo game. All right, next up on the solo list is going to be Hercules and the 12 Labors. So I like Greek mythology. I love dice placement as a mechanic. And so you smash those things together and you get Hercules and the 12 Labors. This is coming to us from Envy Board Games and also has this absolutely gorgeous art style on top of it. So very kind of dice placement where you're going to have these cards laid out that are going to represent the different trials. You're going to be rolling dice and then matching values in order to fulfill them and complete the 12 labors. I think there's a lot of kind of dice manipulation, mitigation, that sort of thing, but this comes in a small box. This looks like very much the type of solo game that I would really enjoy, so I'm really excited to check this one out. Next up, Onoda. So this is from Salt and Pepper Games. A couple things really caught my eye on this one. They are the original publishers for Witchcraft and Resist, which are two solo games that I really enjoy, and this looks to be another solo game coming from them. Not the same designers, but still from the same company. And this takes a really cool real-life story of Hiroru Onoda, who is a Japanese soldier who was stationed on an island in the Philippines, and the war ended, and he refused to believe that the war was ending. He fought for like 28 or 29 years after World War II ended on this island, which is like equal parts like tragic and fascinating, and is a really interesting theme for a solo board game. So you're going to be taking the role of him and trying to survive on this island. And first of all, I like survival as a theme for solo games. I think it lends itself very nicely to, solo gameplay, but it feels like the default theme for this is always Robinson Crusoe. And it's really cool to see another very interesting historical take on survival. And mechanically, I'm not sure too much of what's going on. It seems like you also have a couple of other like soldiers with you, so you're also trying to manage multiple people. But the theme alone and the kind of pedigree that Salt and Pepper has had has me really interested in it. So this is very high up there in the solo realm of what I want to check out. It seems like it has some maybe deck or bag building. I love bag building, so I'm curious to see how this all comes together. But this is a really interesting theme, and I wanted to shout it out since it looks very cool. Vantage. So Vantage is the latest Stonemaier release. I think this is kind of getting a lot of buzz. So this is kind of been described as like a choose your own adventure kind of emergent narrative, which is one of those things that I love in my solo and cooperative games, where you're kind of like telling this story through these cards and doing different things. Stonemaier, very good track record, very high quality. It seems like this is being received well, so I'm really curious to check this one out. I would love to try it and kind of see what the actual like storytelling mechanism is for this game though. So up next for solo is going to be Conservas, which is, I think originally by Salt and Pepper, but I think it was brought over to the US by 25th Century. And this is going to be designed by Scott Alms, who designs a lot of solo button shy games that I really enjoy. And this is going to be a game about running a fishing boat and trying to like sustainably catch fish and then can them. And kind of like from a nature kind of farmy, like sea farming standpoint, that's a really cool theme that I enjoy. And also the mechanic behind it, the bag building, is really, really interesting, where you're trying to build up like these different chits that you're going to put in a bag and you're pulling them out as you're going out to sea. Looked really interesting. Has this like spiral notebook. I'm not sure if like scenario driven or what, but this looks like a really cool theme. I like Scott Alms, so I'm very interested in checking this one out. Now next up we have the Peak Team, which is another game designed by Scott Alms, which kind of caught my eye. And this is going to be a cooperative game where you're going to be playing as like park rangers, and you're going to be trying to protect animals and other wildlife. And there's not too much information here, but it seems like you're going to be traversing up this like increasingly difficult terrain and trying to complete different objectives. But this looks like a nice take on nature plus cooperative, playing as park rangers. It looks really nice. Again, I would like to demo this if it's going to be out there. I think it's pretty early on, so I think it should be there for demoing. So this next one I am really, really interested in, and this is Satchel Quest from Weird City Games with this very nice, distinct vintage trait art style. And this is going to be a bag building dungeon crawler game that's going to be either solo or multiplayer, but the bag building is really what caught my eye. And so I had to go to their website to get a little more information here. But you're going to be building the satchel with different like weapons and artifacts and monsters as you go through this dungeon, and you're going to pull them out and put them on this like little player board, and depending on like how you orient those different things, there's going to be different effects that go off, and how you kind of like solve that like little spatial puzzle as you're building at the dungeon and adding things to your bag, and kind of like what you want to put in it to get certain effects. And this looks really cool. I love games with like this little bit of a spatial puzzle element to it, and I'm really excited to check this one out. Satchel Quest looks real cool. I have to do a quick shout out for Final Girl Shriek. This is like a love letter to Scream and to Final Girl fans, and you guys have heard me yammer about Final Girl a lot recently, so I will not talk too much about it, but know that I will be running to the Van Ryder stand to get my copy of Shriek so that I can come home and share it with you guys. I'm really excited to get this one checked out. And so the last game here is Gone to Gaia from Rose Gauntlet, and this game kind of caught my eye because it is kind of coined as a very narrative roguelite game. So that kind of roguelite element of having a lot of branching pathways of how to customize your character and build out your character. They really kind of play on the narrative aspects, and you have like this town that you go back to and you kind of do missions from, and it looks really cool. I'm going to be demoing this, so I'll share my thoughts kind of after I do that. The world that they've shown off so far looks really neat. The kind of monsters, the kind of like a weird underwater kind of setting. Gone to Gaia, I will be demoing this, and I think that brings us to the end of our solo section. All right, up next, let's talk about some two-player games, and there is no shortage to talk about. And the first one we're going to look at is Gatsby. So this is going to be coming from Pandasaurus at Gen Con, and The Great Gatsby is one of my favorite all-time novels, one of those books I go back to and read every few years. Really feels like it captures that American dream story. But this is not a literary video. We are here to talk about board games, and I love head-to-head two-player games. Like this here, this is beautiful. We have these three boards, and you're going to be kind of playing these three little mini games against your opponent and trying to like move up these different tracks. And the ultimate goal of the game is to get the most amount of influence, to get Gatsby's attention, and presumably to get like invited to one of his parties. But a board broken up into three ways like this, where you're trying to like manage these three different fronts, looks really cool. I love this art style. The kind of art deco that very much goes with like the 20s setting is really cool, and I am really excited about Gatsby here. Love the theme, and I love kind of what it looks to be doing with these different like battlefields that you're going to be going against. Up next is Thingstead, and this is another Scott Alms design. I didn't mean to like stack this list so much with his designs, but this is going to be a two-player game where you're trying to be elected the chieftain of this Viking village, and you're going to do that by winning over elders or winning over clans, and you're going to be doing different like hand management actions. What kind of caught my eye is this like wheel here where you have these different elders, and it looks like you're maybe going to be playing out your like little influence tokens or ravens maybe, and trying to get majority of them and win them over to your side. And I think when you get 3 of these elders, that's like the win condition. So I like games with like a tense win condition. I like the kind of Viking theme, looks cool, and so just one of those two-player games I want to check out while I'm there. So up next is Zenith, and this is a game I actually had a chance to demo at PAX Unplugged last December, and it also has a really good Board Game Arena implementation, which is kind of where I've been playing a bunch of it. And this is a really, really, really good two-player game. So the kind of core of this game is going to be driven by these different cards here, where you're going to be able to play cards to do multiple things, so multi-use cards. And the ultimate goal is to push these little planet tokens to your side and trying to win a certain amount of planet tokens in order to trigger the win condition. But what's really cool is the way that this board is split up into threes, where in the center you're going to have the different planets, where you're going to be pushing them back and forth. On the left-hand side, you're going to have a research track, so certain cards are going to let you move up that research track, which will then let you like draw cards or move these planets and get more credits. And on the right-hand side, you have, I forget what it's called, like the diplomacy or something like that, and you have cards that can go there, and that will let you do some other actions. So it has three cool sections of the board, multi-use cards. It feels like you have like a playground to work with in this, where you have a lot of different avenues to victory. I really, really like this. I really like it digitally, and I'm really looking forward to the physical version being available in the US. So if you're a fan of two-player games, Zenith is definitely worth checking out. It is really, really good, and you can go try it on Board Game Arena if you want to before getting the physical version, but it is awesome. Up next is Star Wars Battle of Hoth, and this is going to be a kind of re-implementation of Memoir 44, which is a game I really enjoy because I like playing with army men, so this is naturally the next step up where I'm going to be able to play with stormtroopers, I guess. And so, very iconic Star Wars. I'm not a huge Star Wars person. I like Star Wars fine, but I'm curious to see mechanically what this is going to change. But it looks really cool. Obviously an awesome theme, and I hope to get a chance to play around a bit at least while at Gen Con. All right, up next, Flintlock Global Warfare in 20 minutes. So this game has a couple of things going for it, mainly the designer, Paolo Mori, who designed some games called Blitzkrieg, World War II in 20 minutes, and Caesar Sees Rome in 20 minutes, which are very, very phenomenal two-player head-to-head tense games. I like Caesar a little bit more than Blitzkrieg, but they were both really awesome games that I really enjoyed. And then the other two designers on this, Roger Tankersley and David Thompson, have done some of my favorite solo games. I mentioned Witchcraft and Resist before, but they've also done Undaunted. They did the Sniper Elite board game, and like this is like a trio of designers that I absolutely love, and I'm really excited to see this new entry in the like 20-minute series, where it's going to be taking, I think it's the French and Indian War and the 7 Years War, and those are cool, two really cool settings, and I'm really excited. There's not too much information about this one yet, so this is definitely one I'm going to be looking for at the show to check out in some more detail, but the designers and the setting has me really, really excited. So Unmatched Battle of Legends Volume 3. I don't talk about it too much on the channel, but I'm a big Unmatched fan. I have a lot of the sets of it. It is one of my favorite kind of tactical like skirmish games, primarily two players, but the co-op is really fun. And the Battle of Legends volumes are some of my favorite. The second volume had Bloody Mary, which is awesome. And this one I'm primarily getting for Chupacabra. To put Chupacabra against Bloody Mary is a dream of mine, and so this, all the characters here look really good, but Chupacabra is stealing the show, and Pandora's looks really cool too. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with her, but I think this is getting released at Gen Con, or maybe it's been released like very recently, so I will be on the lookout to complete my Battle of Legends collection here and play as a Chupacabra soon. Now next up is another Paolo Mori design, and this is Toy Battle. And in this game, you are going to be going up against your opponent and trying to use your little toy soldiers the most efficiently and trying to capture their base. And so the way this game works is that you're going to pull out these little soldiers out of a bag, and you have a pool of them, and then you can place them out on the map. And your ultimate goal is to get one of your pieces onto the opponent's base. You can also collect these stars that you're going to get by like surrounding them, and you got to take those tokens. But a lot of the interesting stuff in this game comes from all the different abilities. So all these different little toys here are going to have different abilities that will go off when you place them, and it gets really, really chaotic. And a lot of this game reminds me of Captain Flip, which is another Paolo Mori design, where you are going to be also pulling things out of a bag and resolving different chaotic effects. And I think this is going to be an extremely popular game. It's really easy to learn, really easy to play, but there's a lot of interesting complexity with these different abilities and what you can do with it. So Toy Battle, definitely this is going to be a hot game of Gen Con. Okay, up next is Tug of Roar, and so this was one I haven't heard too much about, but what kind of caught my eye, and there's not too much information, I had to go to their website to get a lot of it, But it's a little bit of a tug of war game, as the name kind of implies, where you're going to be fighting over these like 5 different areas on the map. What really caught my eye about this game is the kind of almost pre-battle where you're going to be doing this blind bidding to get the troops to eventually build your deck, and then playing them out through these different fields and resolving effects and trying to get the most amount of control possible. But that blind bidding and the strategy of building this deck of troops is what really looks interesting to me. So Heritage Farms is one I found pretty far down the list, but it looks really, really neat. And it looks like a game that's pretty much in a little tin here, and it takes that classic logic puzzle of if you have like a chicken, a human, and a fox on one side of the river, how can you remove them from like one side of the river to the other without the other one like eating each other? And it takes that and makes it into like a 2-player worker placement game. And the theme is really interesting. I'm really curious to see how this puzzle is going to translate into a board game. And you also have like these goods that you're also trying to move across the river. And this looks really, really cute, really small, but this feels like a game that has a lot of game in a small package, and I'm a big fan of games that are able to do that, and so I want to check this out. And then lastly, this is a quick just shout out to Logic and Lore. I did a preview for this like a year and a half ago now, but I think it's finally going to have a full release. This is a really, really nice 2-player deduction game. I really enjoyed my time with it, and if you're a fan of deduction and 2-player games, definitely check out Logic and Lore, and check out my preview if you want to hear a little bit more about it. All right, moving out of 2-player zone and into the lighter / party game section, we have Roaring 20s. And so what really caught my eye here is honestly the name of it and the cover art. That dinosaur in like a flapper dress is really funny, but it actually looks like a really interesting auction bidding game where you're going to be bidding on these different dinosaurs that are going to have different values and doing a little bit of a set collection thing. It looks really cute. It looks pretty straightforward, and I definitely want to check this one out. I'm always looking for more kind of light, easy to learn party games, and the kind of like lighthearted theme of this looks like it would be really easy to kind of get people's interest in. So Roaring 20s looks real neat. Up next is a game that has like no information on it, but when you put a game with like the Crypt Keeper on it, or this is a ghoul that looks like the Crypt Keeper, you're gonna get my attention. So this is from Trick or Treat Studios, which given my penchant for horror is a publisher that I'm always kind of keeping an eye out for because I feel like they do a lot of cool, interesting horror games. So there really isn't too much information about this game. From the back of the box, it mentions having an auction house board and item cards. I'm guessing there's some sort of like auction bidding type of thing happening, but I really love the look of this, and I love, like we saw with Roaring 20s just now, I like light auction bidding games, so definitely want to learn more about this one at the show. Next is a party game from 25th Century called Vanity Plates, and if you're able to decipher how the title is written out, you'll probably end up enjoying this game, where it is a party game where one person is going to have a character or a word that the other players are going to have to guess, and it seems like you're going to have to build your own vanity plate and show it to the other players and have them guess like what you were trying to tell them. So I love the idea of building your own vanity plate. That's like a weird little niche thing that I always love seeing, is like the clever ways people have like funny license plates, and having a game built around that seems really neat. So I'm really excited to check this one out. Looks like it'd be a lot of fun, especially if you have like people who really like word games or something like that. It seems like it would kind of play in that realm, and it looks like a ton of fun. Up next is the game that I think I am most excited for out of this block of like light party games, and this is called Cat and the Tower. And it looks like it takes the Haba game Rhino Hero and turns it up to 11 and makes it way more difficult, way more challenging. I love this cover art. It looks so freaking nice with like the cat with the scarf looking up at the big tower. It looks really, really cool. Look at this. Look at this monstrosity. What is going on here? Look at these long pieces. Look at these cats sticking out of it. This looks like so much fun. I love stacking games. I love dexterity games. And I really, really want to check this one out. This looks like so much fun. It looks gorgeous. Cat in the Tower, I think, is definitely, if you're a dexterity fan like I am, one to keep an eye out for. So all aboard from Devere. So this is a card game where you're going to have these different boats, and they're going to have certain weight limits. And you're going to have a hand of animals that are going to have weights on them. And so you are trying to get rid of your cards by playing these face down to these different boats, but the other players are also playing their cards. So you have to kind of try to predict where people are going to play their cards, and there's a couple of other little card effects here, but you're trying to empty out your hand of as much weight as possible. This looks adorable. I love the theme of trying to put like animals and balancing their weight on the different boats. It looks really cute. This looks like a card game that would go over really well like after dinner or something, and it looks really, really nice. Look how cute this is. This looks really cute. The octopus kind of is in good shape here, I guess, but Really cute game. Want to check it out. Up next is an Oink game called Wriggle Roulette. And as the name implies, it is very Russian roulette inspired, where you are literally just sticking your hand in this bag and pulling out snakes or eels. And if you pull out too many snakes, you hit like the snake threshold and then the snake like overrun you or something. But Oink does such a good job at taking like one trick and making it a really interesting little game. So this looks absurdly light. It looks, again, just pulling things out of the bag, but I love pulling things out of bags. And if you let me do that in a little package, give me a little bit of a fun push your luck type of thing, and I love it. So I will be on the lookout at the Oink booth and see if they're going to have some gosh, that's the actual challenge of the game, is saying it, Wriggle Roulette. All right, Red Carpet. This is the weird game. This is probably the weirdest game we'll talk about this whole video, and you are playing as a paparazzi member, and you need to take photos of these different celebrities. And what I say next is probably going to cause a lot of you to skip forward in the video, but you are going to be using your actual cell phone to take photos, and you're going to position it in certain ways to take photos of your targets. And it sounds so weird, it sounds like it shouldn't work, and I don't know if it's going to, but I am a big fan of gimmicks, and I'm really curious to check this one out and see how well it actually works. Also, how do you balance it with like different people's cell phones? Like if someone has like a potato cell phone that's taking like 240 resolution images, like does that count? How do you, like, what if someone has like a really big telescopic lens that they're able to take pictures of? How do you balance around different cell phones? I don't know, but I'm really curious. All right, we are moving out of light/party games and moving into like medium weight games. Games that I don't know where they should live, so they live in this awkward middle ground. And the first one here is Tatsumi. So this looks like a cool abstract game where you're going to be trying to build out these different rings of like elements, and you're going to do it from this like central transparent board. So everyone's going to have a different dragon piece, and I think how you position your dragon is going to determine which like discs that you're able to take, and you're trying to like build up your own player board here and build these different patterns. Really cool theme with the dragons. I like this central transparent thing that it's doing, but it looks really neat, and I like abstract games every now and then, and this one looks like it has a cool kind of theme thrown on top of it. So Tatsumi, I couldn't find too much about it, but it looks really cool. Up next is Ruins from All Play, and this is designed by John DeClaire, and he's doing his John DeClaire iconic thing where he's going to use these transparencies in the game. And so this is a, I think a card shedding / ladder climbing game where you're going to be trying to get rid of these cards, but you're also going to be crafting cards. So you're going to be laying these transparency on top of your cards and trying to play them to get rid of them. This is one I think is going to be pretty big at Gen Con, and I think I'm going to have a chance to get this played, but I really like the theme. The kind of ruin archaeology theme looks cool. The transparencies you can see here as they start to layer on top of each other. It's going to add different effects. And I like that it's taking this system of the transparencies and putting it in a game that seems to be quite a bit lighter. His games like Mystic Vale or Dead Reckoning are kind of much bigger, heavier games, but to take this like central system and use it in a lighter card game looks really, really neat. So up next we have another auction game, and this is Wine Cellar from 25th Century. And I love auction games, but what really caught my eye here is it does this really neat thing that depending on when you get these bottles of wine and you win them in the auction, they are worth a certain amount of points where you're like aging them essentially. And the timing of how you want to build out your wine cellar is really dependent on these different bottles of wine and how you want to like time what you win. So it has this interesting thing where they're worth points, but they're going to be worth different points to different players depending on where in your like your order that they are. And this seems like a really interesting take on auctions and changing the value of how much things are worth. And I'm really excited to check this one out as a lover of auction. So 12 Rivers is the game that is also sort of here based on its gimmick that really caught my eye, where you're going to have these different tracks and you're going to roll marbles down them, and you're going to have your own colored stoppers here, and you're trying to navigate these little marbles down the rivers. And you have these like little patterns here that you're trying to fulfill and get certain colors for. So I love the idea of having a physical like marble track that is part of the game, and I'm curious to see how it all ties together with different cards and the worker placement mechanic behind it. But this alone has my attention enough to at least try it. So 12 Rivers looks really cool with these marbles here. So this next game is one that I am so ashamed of myself that I missed this as it was going on crowdfunding, and I just totally didn't hear about it, and this is Spooktacular from level 99. And so the theme of this game is that you are going to play as a movie monster that has like escaped from the screen, and you are terrorizing these like moviegoers in a movie theater. And it has like such an awesome aesthetic with the different movie posters, the different monsters, and they're all asymmetric, where all the monsters are going to have their own abilities, and you're trying to scare the most amount of people. And the theme of this, the mechanic of playing as a monster and having these asymmetric abilities is so awesome. And this is one that I 100% have to get tried, especially as a horror lover. I really, really want to see what is going on with Spooktacular. Up next is a game that is in a genre that I'm going to call warm soup, where I look at this cover and I see the colors and I see this beaver looking down its town, and I just feel like comforted from it. And then I look at the images and it's like, oh, look at this nice tile placement. It has the river moving down. You're building up like these different scoring objectives. And this looks like such a warm game, a warm, cozy, dare I say, game, despite that maybe being an overused word, but it just looks so nice. It's going to have these like different variable scoring conditions. It has the river that I really like when it's tied with drafting, and like there's some like tension of like losing out on these tiles as they flow down and you lose access to them. The beaver town is really, really cute. And this just seems like a perfect like mid-weight, cozy, warm game, and I would love to get a game of it tried and see how it plays. Up next is a roll and write that really caught my interest, and this is called the Arkham Travel Guide. And so this is a roll and write where you are going to be a tour guide trying to build a route through the city of Arkham. That is such an absurd theme, but one that I really, really love, and I'm so curious to see how they tie in the kind of mythos and the kind of insanity and all that stuff that goes with Lovecraftian creatures and tie it into a roll and write. So really got to get this one checked out. This looks really awesome. I adore the theme. I like roll and writes. So Arkham Travel Guide is definitely one I got to take a look at. There is also another game called the Innsmouth Travel Guide that I think is like just maybe different mechanics of this. I think it's the same like series of game, but both of those I would like to check out. So up next is Moon Bunny, and this is from a company called Hot Banana Games, and they are best known for doing a game called the Dim Sum game that had those like squishy pieces. It was very, very cute, and this is their follow-up game to that. And this is going to be a little bit of an abstract game, I think, where you're going to have your bunnies and you're going to be sending them out to collect these ingredients from a shared central board and then bringing them back to craft different potions. And it looks like some of the bunnies have like different movement conditions, so depending on which one you want to send out there, they're going to be able to move in different ways, and it looks really, really adorable. I like the central board mechanism where you're kind of like fighting over ingredients with other people, and definitely one I want to check out. So up next is a game called First Class Letters, and this is designed by Peter Hayward, who has done a number of Button Shy games that I really enjoy. And this is a roll and write word game. And so you're going to roll these different dice that have letters on them, and you're going to have to write words that are using those dice. But you also have this red dice where it's going to have a letter that you can't use. So you have to use as many letters as possible from the 3 brown dice, but not use the red dice. And you're going to play that over 7 rounds, and you get more points if you use more of the letters that are on the dice that were rolled. So it looks really light. I generally like word games despite kind of being garbage at them, and I like the kind of like UPS like mail theme. Looks really cute. So definitely one I want to check out. So up next we have Scream from Bezier Games, which is another little bit of a bluffing card shedding game where you're going to be drawing cards and then playing cards with effects and trying to get the lowest score possible. And really what caught my attention is the horror theming. Look at these cards. These look awesome. This guy's little spider guy looks really creepy. You got Samara crawling out of the well. You have a cute spider. I really like this horror theming of it. I think this is a re-implementation of a game called Scram, which I never played, but you put slap a horror theme on something and you got my interest. So Scream, I think I remember them actually demoing Scram at like PAX last year. So Scream, definitely one I'm going to check out because you put monsters in it and I am on board. So next is Camp Grizzly. So this is a game that is one of my Grail games. The original Camp Grizzly came out a while ago. It is really hard to find, and it is now being brought back by Trick or Treat Studios, where it's going to be semi-cooperative, and you're going to have this killer, and you're playing as this camp counselor trying to survive the best way possible. And this looks just so stinking cool. I love the aesthetic, this like summer camp, very campy, very Friday the 13th, and this like little bit of a cutthroat nature where you need to be the person to survive the killer going around. This looks like a game that I would absolutely love theme-wise. I'm curious to see how it's going to work mechanically, but the fact that it's coming back, this is a game I 110% have to try while I'm there, and I am so excited to check it out. So this next game, I can't really make heads or tails of. This is Don Quixote, the Ingenious Hidalgo. So this is telling the story of Don Quixote, and it is a blind voting game. So you're going to go up on these different encounters where you're going to read it, and then it seems like you can vote for one resolution or the other. And depending on which one you resolve, you're going to move a certain track up the little central board here. And everyone is going to have a secret objective where they're going to score based on where these different pieces are. So it's a little bit of bluffing, a little bit of deception, but I tend to like games with these storytelling narratives, so I'm curious to see mechanically if it can hold the weight of telling this story. But it looks cool, definitely want to check it out. And this is, I think, another one that's lower on the hot list, and I'm kind of just happy to draw some attention towards it. So up next we have Boom Patrol from Smirk and Dagger. And so I'm a person who, I think I am on the edges of getting into miniature games. They're just such a big investment. They have heavy rule sets, they're too intimidating for me. But I like board games that skirt around the edges of being miniature games. And that's what I got from Boom Patrol. So you're going to be controlling this tank with this like cute animal commander. And it is just going to be straight tank combat. It looks like you're going to have terrain here. Look at those little houses being cover. And you're going to have, look at this, a template, close, mid, long. This feels very much like a little miniature game, but again, it's going to be all cardboard. It's a little bit less of a buy-in to get into this game, but I like tank combat as an idea. You know, you're putting it front and back, and you're trying to like move your tank around. It looks really cool, and definitely one I want to check out. This looks like a awesome like 2-player game. Maybe, you know, it looks like it goes up to 4. Gets kind of crazy with 4 tanks going around, but this game looks like a lot of fun. And again, it scratches that itch of skirmish miniature games without having to go whole hog into it, and it's also really cute to boot. All right, we are moving into the final section of our video, the general heavier strategy games. And the first one I'm going to talk about is March of the Ants Evolved Edition. So March of the Ants is a game that came out 10 years ago, and I had never heard of it, but I am now hearing of this, you know, new revised edition, and this is a 4X game with ants, which to me is such a freaking cool theme for a 4X game. So you can see here, you're going to have the Great Tunnel, which is this kind of central map that you are building out from. But what I really like is this little player board that you have. So you have a player board where you're going to have a ant that you're going to be evolving as the game goes on. So the ant's body is like broken up into 3 sections, and depending on how you choose to evolve your ant, you're going to get like different benefits for different actions, which is so cool. They look kind of scary, honestly, but I like this theme. I like 4X games, but I'm tired of them all being set in space. Why are they all set in space? Put it underground. Give it ants. Looks really cool. Looks really interesting. I'm really excited to get this one tried, and I'm excited for a unique 4X game. This one looks real neat. All right, Lightning Train. This is a game that really caught my eye on the designer specifically. So this is Paul Dennen, who is probably most known for designing Clank and Dune Imperium. 2 phenomenal games. Clank I credit for getting me on board with deck building as a whole, and so he has an awesome track record for designs. Now Lightning Train specifically caught my eye because it's the word of the day. It's a bag builder. So you're going to be building out these different routes. It looks like you're going to have your own personal little player board for your train color, and this looks really fun. It looks like it's going to have a lot of tension on the kind of routes on the map, and this looks like super Ticket to Ride. Also, this person has a profile picture that says train span, which is really funny. But this looks really neat. It looks like you're gonna have some action cards. It looks like maybe you're gonna have some different routes here. And I think I couldn't even get a demo of this. This was already like, all the demos of this were sold out. So maybe I'll be able to sneak into a game of it, but definitely one I want to be checking out while I'm there. All right, so up next is Citizens of the Spark from Thunderworks Games. And this caught my interest for a couple of reasons. One is the look of it. It looks really cool. And the second is that it is a tableau builder. So you're going to be playing out these different citizens in front of you. And it's also going to have another mechanic that I really love, which is the follow mechanic. So you're going to have a chance to activate these citizens that are in your tableau, but everyone else around the table is also going to be able to activate the same citizen if they have it in front of them. And you're going to be trying to collect these, like, I think they call it Spark, which is like the main resource, these little cubes that you're collecting. And that is going to be the ultimate goal of the game. But I like tableau building. I like chaining off different, matching types of these citizens. And the follow mechanic is kind of the cherry on top, keeps everyone engaged. And it looks really, really awesome. This is one I would love to get played. All right, up next is Ra and Right from 25th Century. And so this is the first, I think, of 2 spin-offs that we're going to have for Ra soon. The other one being Ra, the dice game. But base Core Ra is one of my favorite games of all time at this point. Love the auction, love the set collection. It is just such a phenomenal game. And so just the fact that this is a spin-off of it I want to check out. I think it's not an auction game, so I'm curious to see how they're going to kind of adapt the core essence of Ra into this game. Or maybe it's going to be totally different and not have too much to do with the original, other than, you know, the style of it. But it looks like it has a lot of the similar set collection iconography. You have the little Ra cards here. So I'm curious to see. This looks like a pretty simple board for a roll and write, so I'm curious to see how it all comes together. But given the fact that it is Ra, I at the very least want to check it out. The Crustaceous Rails. This is a game I had never heard about until going through this list, and it is a game about building a dinosaur park, which maybe we have seen once or twice before. But I like that it is modular, so you can see it's kind of these different little tiles that you're building out here. I like the amount of miniatures. It looks very alive. I really feel for these people who are surrounded by these dinosaurs. But it looks a little bit heavier. It has quite a bit going on based on what I've kind of seen here. There's this whole sideboard here of like these different little tracks that you're keeping track of. It looks like you're doing some maybe tableau building here, like different tiers of buildings. This looks really, really cool. I like the route building where you're building this train also connecting through the Cretaceous Park. Actually, yeah, these are tile. I see the little perforations here. But this is really cool. Not one that I know too much about. This seems like the perfect game to demo at Gen Con, though, and learn a little bit more about. Great Western Trail El Paso. So Great Western Trail, I played for the first time when the second edition came out. I like it fine. I remember feeling it was a little too long. Again, not big on deck building generally, but this is like the miniature version of it, where they're going to squish it down. It's going to be a smaller game. It's going to be quicker playing. I like the idea of collecting these sets of cattle and trying to, like, you know, guide them through the map and eventually sell them, which I really like that aspect of it. So I'm curious to see how the smaller version of it ends up coming out. So Food for Thought is a game that has really caught my eye based, honestly, on the theme alone. So you're going to try to, it seems like, gather the most amount of food possible to build a, like, healthy lifestyle or a healthy, like, diet. And it's going to kind of revolve around getting these different tokens. You have, like, the different food groups and everything. And I love games with unique themes. I like that it's kind of like promoting healthy living. Like, I wonder how accurate nutritionally it is, which would be kind of interesting. But this is a really cool game on theme alone, and I'm curious to see how it plays out. So Heroes Write and Conquer reminds me of Cartographers, and you rammed it up like 4 levels in complexity and kind of different mechanics, and that looks like what you would get here, which really, really caught my eye. I love Cartographers. I love the idea of a fantasy roll and write. And in this game, you're going to have this, like, I think this picture is in, like, Russian. Oh, no, this is in English. The fantasy names look like Russian to me. The other pictures are in Russian. So in this game, you're going to have a fantasy map that you're going to be kind of moving around, it looks like, and trying to conquer. But you're also going to have these little research trees. So these look a lot like real-time strategy game to me, where you're going to start with, like, the graveyard, and then you keep upgrading it to these different buildings that are going to give you access to certain units. So it feels very RTS to me. This looks awesome. This looks really, really interesting. I'm curious to see how much, like, interaction there are between the players, if you're actually, like, doing combat with people, or if you're kind of just self-contained to your own map and moving around that way. But this looks really cool. It looks like a lot of interesting stuff. I love real-time strategy games, so taking that into a roll and write looks really neat. And this is one of those games that were lower on the hot list, and I'm glad I kind of dug it up because it looks really, really neat. Up next is Luthier. So this is from Paverson Games, and a couple of years ago they released a game called Distilled, and it is a deck builder game that really, really kind of I was smitten with, where you're going to be distilling spirits, trying to barrel them, and then eventually sell them. But the way that you manipulate the cards in the deck and, like, where they go in the barrel and, like, the ingredients and everything is really, really interesting. I think they do such a good job at taking a mechanic and tying the theme into it. And so, you know, instrument creation is one that I'm probably less interested in than alcohol, but I just have a lot of faith in them to take mechanics and make them feel very integrated into the theme of the game. So the setting is really cool. The theme of it really interests me. It's a little bit on the heavier side, but again, if they can tie it into the theme and make it, like, make logical sense of what you're doing in the game, that can go a really long way. So definitely one I want to check out. So Sanctuary is the spin-off game from Ark Nova, where it's going to take a lot of the core concepts of Ark Nova and make it into a little bit more of a streamlined game. So Ark Nova is a game that I like, but I like a lot of the individual pieces more than the sum of its whole. So I'm overall kind of lukewarm on it, but it's taking a lot of the core concepts of Ark Nova and putting it on these tiles. So it's primarily going to be a tile placement game where you're going to have your little zoo board similar to Ark Nova, and you're going to be building out from it. And I'm happy to see that it takes what my favorite part of Ark Nova is, which is the action selection system, and is keeping that in this game. So you can see down here, it's going to have these different actions, and you can flip them over so that they're more powerful, and you can pay to upgrade them. And I assume that they're going to use them, and then you slide them down to the bottom, and the longer you wait to use them, the stronger they're going to be. And that is my favorite thing in the game. So I'm actually signed up to demo this, so I'm really excited to check it out and see if it changes my mind on Ark Nova. Kinfire Council. So Kinfire Delve has very quickly become one of my favorite solo games, and I have become really interested in the world of Kinfire. I haven't played Kinfire Chronicles, the first game, but this is going to be a worker placement game, so totally different from the other two, where you are going to be rebuilding the city that Kinfire Chronicles takes place in. So spoilers, I guess the city does not end up in too great of a place at the end of that game. But it has this very interesting kind of like political system where you're going to try to like gain influence. There's like these different cults in it. There's a lot of these different tracks. So there's a lot going on, but it looks really, really interesting. I love worker placement. I love unique worker placement games. It looks gorgeous, and I am beyond ecstatic to give this a shot. All right, and lastly, we have Inferno. So this is another heavier Euro game, but if you put a cool theme on a heavy Euro, you definitely got my attention. And this one, where it's gonna be very inspired by the Divine Comedy, right, going through the different layers of hell. And it looks like this game is kind of split up into two boards here, where you're gonna have the hell board, where you're kind of guiding these souls, and then up here on the Florence board, I'm wondering if this is where you like collect souls, and it's like you're kind of guiding them from like the living world down further and further. But there's a lot going on to this game, it looks like, but the theme has my interest very, very piqued, and this is definitely a game that it seems like I would like to demo and kind of see what is going on there. All right, so those are my games that I am interested in Gen Con. I realize this is a very long, self-indulgent list, and literally I went through all those games and just kept opening tabs of what looked interesting, and this is after I trimmed down a bunch of them, and I still ended up with a ton of games, and there is no way I'm going to get to all of these games, but I'd rather go into it with being overambitious and trying to get to everything than not have enough and kind of meander and you know, not make the most efficient use of my time there. So I'm curious, what are you most excited about going into Gen Con? I hope this list showed you some, you know, lesser known titles, something to maybe catch your interest. And if I missed anything, be sure to let me know in the comments below if there's something at Gen Con that I definitely need to be checking out. So thank you as always for joining me on the video. If you enjoyed it, consider liking and subscribing so that you can catch the post-Gen Con coverage that I'm sure there will be a ton of. So thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye. Kind of caught my eye is that it is very kind of roguelite inspired. Oh god, I am not going to survive this entire video